Hi. Thank you for attending today's reading. Let's begin. What was the reason for your latest mental breakdown? End of story. Next story. Choose your own adventure. You wake up in a dark room with no memory of your past except for the knowledge that you are a stowaway on a ship. You hear men talking around you, though you can't quite tell where their voices are coming from. The year is 1763. In an effort to try and find out more about who you are and why you are here, you decide to explore. To explore the room you are in, go to 6. To try and find an exit out of the room, go to 2. There are 6 rules and 2 endings. End of story. Next story. I got an internship at Adult Swim this fall despite my rocky art journey. Inspirational read. I told this story to a family member and they told me how inspirational it was, so I thought I'd spread it around. Context. I am a black girl from inner city Cleveland, where the schools are shit and the art programs are non-existent. My whole life I was told I was a great artist, but when I went to the big art school in my town to study animation, the school is 95% white, with kids who had the privilege of going to much better schools. I realized how behind I was. Professors would question to my face how I got into the school, telling me that if I couldn't properly paint, how could I do anything else? Everyone else was drawing circles around me and I just couldn't catch up. I went from being a straight A student in HS to B, C's, D+ student in college. My mom was disappointed and decided not to fund my tuition anymore. And I had to take out a small loan. The school I go to has us audition at the end of freshman year for your spot in a major. For animation, there were 15 spots, with 120 freshmen applying. If you didn't get in, a whole year's tuition is wasted, or pick a different career in art. Of course, I didn't get in. I immediately gave up on everything and stopped going to classes because what was the point? I cried for days, feeling like a failure to my mom, who wanted me to be a lawyer at the law school she worked for that was coincidentally right next door to the art school I was attending. Eventually though, I got an email from the head of animation saying that he'd like to speak with me. He told me he remembered my cartoons but that I needed to work on certain areas to really excel in animation. After some negotiations and personal homework assignments, he opened one extra spot for me in the major. And I got in by the skin of my teeth. Unfortunately, the damage was done since I had given up on my classes 2 weeks prior. And I graduated freshman year WA 2.5 GPA. And was put on academic probation and almost lost a scholarship. Sophomore year I struggled. For a whole year straight I was humiliated again and again during critiques of our art BC. I was so behind skill-wise. One professor even called one of my animations a hot-ass mess. That same professor told me in private that he saw potential in me and that I haven't reached my ceiling, and that's why he went so hard on me. Gradually I started getting better. And my grades climbed. Sophomore year I graduated with a 2.7 GPA. Important to note, the number one thing that art students covet the most is an internship with a big company. It shows how much you're worth, I guess. Junior year. This last year was easier. I had worked hard all summer practicing my craft, got better at life drawing and came back as one of the better students. But still with some faults here and there. It's important to note that my classmates never saw me as competent. Not that I wanted that. Art students are pretty pretentious. And they never really saw me as someone who they had to beat. I applied to internships not really expecting anything back. In March, while I was on a class trip, I got an interview for Adult Swim, which confused the fuck out of a lot of people. What they didn't know was that I had doing a lot of volunteer work and made posters for school events on my downtime and was a teaching aide for freshman students. So my resume was packed. Long story short, 2 months later after interviews, I got an email saying I had been chosen for the internship. And suddenly I had gained respect from all of my peers and professors. I had finally shown him that I am worthy of your attention and I deserve to be a part of this major that kids fight so hard to get into. There were so many nights when I wanted to just give up BC. I was exhausted from working all night on something I knew was just gonna get me roasted. But I'm so glad I didn't. I'm glad that I continued to believe in myself even when my own mom didn't. I will never give up on something I believe in ever again. And I hope this story inspires you all to do the same. Edit. Junior year just ended. GPA is now at a 3.1. End of story. Next story. Met the cutest girl on a plane this week and got her number. Had to tell the story. 21 comments. Share. Save. Hide. Report. 99% upvoted. End of story. Next story. That night SWAT knocked down my down door during sex. True story. I had my tongue between this girl's legs. At home. In the middle of the night. Naked ass in the air. Suddenly 5 goddamn tactical team members. My country's version of SWAT. Break down the door and enters my apartment with MP5s. Shields and tactical gear with super bright flashlights. Where is Frederick? Quote. Where the fuck is Frederick? They kept shouting. I had no idea who Frederick is. My date was freaking the fuck out. Hyperventilating and shaking. Having no idea what they were talking about. Turns out they were looking for my neighbor in the apartment below. And went too far in the stairs. Knocking down the wrong door. On their way out of my apartment they spotted my roommate's bushweed growing together with my tomatoes in the window of our living room. The leader of the tactical team noticed and simply said, "We will forget that this is here. And you will forget we ever were here." They then left. Chuckling. We did not sleep any more that night. Or fuck for that matter. End of story. Next story. My collection of weird true things that happened when I worked midnights at a gas station. Obligatory. This was about 10 years ago. I was between 19 to 21 years old. I liked working midnights. Because the real weirdos came out. The area my gas station was in was a middle upper class city near a busy highway exit. So even during midnights we were fairly steady. The weird. I had a guy come in and go straight to the bathroom. Where we keep condom dispensers. After buying condoms. He came to the counter. Clearly upset. He claimed that our selection of condoms was too low. And was mad about it. My only response was, "It's just a dispenser. I can't do anything about it." Quote. And he got pissed. He then took the condoms out of the wrappers and started putting them on the candy bars in a weird fury. And then started slamming them on the ground. I had a little kid. Like absolutely no way he was a day older than 13 come in and try to buy cigarettes. I didn't even ask for his ID. I just laughed and said no. He also didn't like this and tried to fight me. I wasn't in the mood that day, so I just grabbed him by the collar and physically threw him out of the store. The bad. I've seen a guy get tasered and arrested in the parking lot. After swinging at an officer. I believe he was being pulled over for a routine stop. Then proceeded to try to flee and got into a minor car chase which ended up with him pulling over at our gas station and getting out of the car. We have to clean the bathrooms every few hours. And I one time went into the men's bathroom to be greeted with a pure blue shit splattered all over the walls. The toilet lid. It was everywhere. And it was literally the color of Ajax cleaning liquid. I have no idea how that person is still alive. There was this maybe 30-year-old black guy who would come in every night and keep me company for about an hour. He listened to the same underground backpack rap I did at the time. I would play it quietly in the back room during shifts. He took it very literally. He always came in with this huge-ass backpack on and skateboard attached. If it was dead, we'd mess around in the parking lot on his skateboard. Strippers would come in and try to get me to fuck them during my shift. There was one particularly persistent stripper who would come in almost every week and try. I never did it because I was too scared of getting in trouble. Either way, it's still an ego boost for a tall, skinny nerd. I met one of my best friends working the midnight shift. He's about 5 years older than me, but quickly we became best friends. We used to have tons of adventures and come into work on 0 hours of sleep, slamming 5-hour energies to get through the shift. He ended up being one of my groomsmen at my wedding 8 years later. I have more, but these are the immediate ones I remember. End of story. That is all for today. If you want to support my automated channel, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. See you tomorrow.